Chapter 13 is about informative speeches. A speech to inform is a speech that teaches others new information, ideas, concepts, principles, or processes in order to enhance their knowledge or understanding about something. There are 5 different types of informative speeches. There are informative speeches about objects, for example, which present information about tangible things. Speeches about objects usually have the organizational pattern of topical, spatial, and chronological. Some examples of informative speeches are the Rosetta Stone, museums, International Space Station, and voting machines. The second type of informative speech is about procedures, which purport to review how something works or describe a process. The typical organizational patterns include chronological, topical, and complexity. Some sample topics are how to trap lobsters, how to operate a nuclear power plant, and how to buy a quality used car. The third type of informative speech is about people, and the purpose of those speeches is to describe famous or people or personal acquaintances. The typical organizational patterns of this type of speech include chronological and topical. Some sample topics for informative speeches about people are your favorite teacher, your grandfather, or famous people like Oprah Winfrey. The fourth informative speech is about events whose purpose is to describe an event that either has happened or will happen. The typical organizational patterns for this type of speech include chronological, topical, and spatial. The fifth and final informative speech is about ideas. The purpose of this type of speech is to present abstract information or discuss principles, concepts, theories, or issues. The typical organizational patterns for speeches about ideas are topical and complexity.
Strategies to enhance audience understanding. In our society today, the skill of teaching and enhancing understanding is important to virtually any profession. In almost any career that you choose, you'll be called upon to teach and explain. For the audience to understand what you're presenting, you must have the ability to describe both old and new ideas. Even if you're trying to explain an old concept, idea, or term, doesn't mean that it's easy for someone to understand. A person hearing an old idea for the first time goes through the same process as if he or she were learning a brand new concept. In this section, I'll be explaining how you can enhance the audience's understanding. One of the most important things to do when presenting your speech is to speak with clarity. To speak with clarity is to express your ideas, that way the listener can understand your intended message correctly. To speak clearly is an obvious goal for any speaker, but what's not so obvious is how to speak clearly. As a speaker, you may think you're being clear, but only the listener can tell you if your message has been received or not. If the information seems clear to the speaker, then the speaker will think they're presenting the information clearly to the audience. It doesn't matter what topic you're presenting to the class or if you're trying to explain a concept to a friend or another person. What really matters is that you're familiar with your topic. And if you're familiar with it, you're likely to think your task of presenting it to the audience is easier than it actually is. I have several research-based strategies that I found in the book that says they enhance your message clarity, and some of them I totally agree with them, and some of them I just don't. For instance, to preview your main ideas to your introduction, you already have to do that anyway. You want to get your main ideas across to your audience, that way they understand what your topic is about. You want your listeners to relate to your topic. You want them to remember your key ideas. If something pops up into your head about how what I just said relates back to that point that I just made, say it, go right ahead. It'll get them to remember your point more clearly and more in depth. Next is to frequently summarize your key ideas. You should be doing this throughout your entire speech, not just in your conclusion. You want them to understand your main points. You also want to provide a visual outline to help listeners follow your ideas. I believe this is a great idea because this way your audience will be able to see your thought process of your argument. The next one is to provide a handout prior to your talk with the major points outlined. I totally disagree with this single strategy because when we were in class and we were talking about how you shouldn't give out any handouts or anything that you have to show with the class, during the presentation or before it, because they'll have the handout with them, and all they're going to do is they're going to look at the handout. They're not going to pay attention to what you have to say. They're not going to pay attention to your speech. And you don't want them to do this. You want them to pay attention to you. Once you announce your topic and outline, stay on message. Stay on point. Don't try to stray off topic with something random that comes into your head. Another thing you don't want to do is to present information too quickly. If you present information too quickly, your audience won't understand what you have to say. Another thing you want to do for your speech is to use principles and techniques of adult learning. Most public speaking audiences and most public speaking classes that you will take will consist of adults. To be able to teach your audience about your topic, you must learn the art and science of teaching adults. Here are some important adult learning principles. Provide information that can be used immediately. People will most likely understand and focus on a message if they can immediately apply it to themselves. Actively involve listeners in the learning process. Your audience is just sitting there, listening to what you have to say. Be interactive. Get them involved. Ask them questions. Another thing is to connect your listeners' life experiences with the new information they learned. And the best way to do this is by knowing the kinds of experiences your audience has been through. Another thing is to make new information relevant to listeners' needs and their busy lives. The information and ideas you share to your audience will have a greater chance of being heard or understood if you relate it to their busy lives. Everyone goes to work, everyone goes to school, everyone raises a family one time or another or spends time with their family. Another thing is to help listeners solve their problems. Everyone has problems and are looking for solutions to them. Your audience will more likely pay attention to information that helps them better understand and solve their own problems. During the presentation of your speech, you want to appeal to a variety of learning styles. Many have a preferred learning style, and the four most common are auditory, visual, print, visual, and kinesthetic learners. The speaker must keep in mind how they can appeal to a variety of learning styles at the same time to keep their audience's attention. Auditory learners are people who learn best by hearing. They would rather like to listen to an audiobook than read. Visual print learners are people who learn best by seeing words in print. They would rather like to read the material than hear it. Visual learners are people who learn best by both words and images. They would rather see an article online with a picture to help them remember the ideas and the information. Kinesthetic learners are people who learn best by moving while learning. They would rather try something and hear it, watch it, or read it. They're people that like active learning methods, like writing while listening. When presenting your speech, the auditory listeners will of course love it, but think of the other learners as well. You can use PowerPoints for the visual learners, and they can expect an informative talk too. They would appreciate seeing pictures and summarize statistics on graphs. The kinesthetic learners would appreciate every small movement, like raising their hands to respond to a question, and visual print learners would appreciate handouts, which you could distribute after your talk. You must remember, throughout your speech, you must keep your message clear. Apply adult learning principles. Clarify the unfamiliar or complex processes that you have in your speech by using analogies, vivid descriptions, and word pictures. And lastly, plan for many different types of learning styles of your audience. You want to appeal to all your audience members.
Strategies to maintain audience interest. We must be able to maintain a person's interest before we actually inform them. Motivate your audience to listen to you. Never assume that your listeners will be interested in what we're going to say. We can't use strong-arm tactics, so we need to use creative ways to keep and maintain their interest. Strong arm tactics include a teacher saying that there will be a text on the lecture that she is giving, or a boss giving a presentation of sales tactics and then telling his workers that their job depends on how efficiently they use these methods. Some creative ways to maintain the audience's attention include telling a story or telling how the information will be valuable to them. Telling a story. Use good stories with characters and plots. Good stories should have 4 components: a conflict that with opposing ideas and forces. It should incorporate action, having a plot that moves along. It should create suspense, keeping the audience at the edge of their seats to know what will happen next, and it should incorporate humor if it's appropriate to the topic. Stories can help to connect your message to the people of various cultural backgrounds as well. Present information that relates to your listeners. Use an audience-centered approach. Be aware of the information that your audience can use. Adapt your message to the people in your audience. Use the unexpected. With little thought, we can make a boring message into something that is clever to listen to. Use surprises, mystery, and suspense to maintain attention of the audience.
To enhance audience recall. Building in redundancy. When speaking, it is important to repeat key points or main ideas that you have talked about. Throughout your message, you should be re-summarizing your topic by restating your points in order. A reinforcing visual aid by displaying your key ideas can help. Making your key ideas short and simple. You will want to display your key ideas down to a brief or simple phrases, enough that you can fit into a PowerPoint. Don't give a lengthy list of ideas in one topic. Make your central idea short enough to fit on a bumper sticker about this big, or an index card. Give tips that have to do with your main ideas. This would be something verbal. Non-verbal ideas can be pausing, which can help emphasize your ideas, raising your voice, or the movement around the room. Always remember, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Pace your information flow. Make yourself present the information little by little. This way, you don't overwhelm your listeners, especially with information that may be unknown or a little bit more complicated. Give it time to explain and for your audience to understand. Use support materials to both help clarify new information and slow the pace down. Reinforce your key ideas. Reinforcing key ideas verbally or non-verbally can make your idea more memorably. Remember, in these 2 different strategies, there's different strategies you can use.
Hello, today I'm going to be talking about developing an audience-centered speech. The first thing to do, obviously, is to take your audience into consideration. Because you're going to have an audience of a bunch of different people, you're going to want to consider their beliefs, their attitudes, their values, and it'll help for a better experience overall. What you want to do is find their preferred learning styles for many reasons. One of them will be it will help maintain their interest in your topic, and it'll be more relevant to your audience. So if you're speaking with a younger audience versus an older one, it'll be much easier to do for them to learn depending on, whatever learning style you use. Now, after you pick a topic, it can't be too general, so you're going to want to narrow your topic. And what you need to ask yourself is, what does the audience already know? What do they already know about my topic? And consider how interested they would be in your topic. If they're interested, you can provide a more detailed topic. And interest can help you build on your topic. Interest can give you more to speak about, and it'll be for a better speaking experience overall. Next, you want to determine your informative purpose. Develop your specific behavioral purpose to know what your audience should be able to do when your speech is over. So, say what they should be able to list, what they should be able to describe, what they should be able to do. A specific purpose can help for many reasons. It can guide you as you develop your main and your central idea, which is what you need for your outline. And it's also useful for organizing your speech, because the more organized your speech is, the better it is for you to carry out, and it's much easier overall. In your specific purpose sentence, you want to use specific words like state, summarize, describe, and list to focus your message. Now, after you've done that, based on all of that, you can bring it together and you can develop your central and main ideas. Your central idea is somewhat brief, and it's just meant to help understand your message. It's not your whole speech, it's a summary almost, a little tiny sentence. Your main idea comes from your specific purpose by breaking it down. Depending on your topic, your main ideas can be adjusted. If you're doing a how-to video or if you're doing a speech on a person, your main idea is going to be different. Your main idea should always reflect your central and specific purposes. Now, up next, what you have to do is once you have that done, you want to gather materials and organize your speech. As you do your research, you want to use illustrations and statistics and tools and stories and anything that can help express your main purpose to make your speech even better. The main idea should reflect your central ideas and specific ideas, like I said earlier, and your tools is going to go off of all of that. Depending on your speech, you can have visual aids. If you're doing a speech on a person, for example, maybe you'll have a poster with a picture of them. But if you're doing like a how-to speech, like cooking or how to build something, you're going to want materials so that the audience can feel more interactive and so they could learn even better as well. So the more materials you have to demonstrate, the better your message will get across and the better speech you will have. Now, with your audience in consideration, organize your speech accordingly. With your tools, you want to use them at a time appropriate to when you're mentioning the tools. You don't want to talk about flour when you have eggs in your hand. So, the final step is rehearsing and delivering your speech. Rehearsing the speech. You want to rehearse out loud to recreate the experience that you're going to have very soon and to properly time yourself, because especially if you have a time limit, you want to make sure you get into that time period, so practicing will help you even better. It's really good if you rehearse in front of other people, because rehearsing in front of other people can enhance the experience even more, and you can have a lot of feedback. And feedback is good because then constructive criticism can help you improve your speech. Now, today it's the speech day. When you're delivering your speech, you want to use good eye contact, use effective gestures, and speak with a clear voice so the audience can understand your point.